Well, good morning. Breaking news here on a Wednesday. Who knew you went to sleep and Texas was looking at a defensive tackle? You wake up and here he is. Catch is here. We're going to have a talk about, I guess it's a hero that has landed in Austin. Hit the like button, subscribe to it. Catch, we had to talk about hero. Is it Kanu or Kano? Do we know how we're saying this, by the way?
I would just go with Kanu at the moment, and
Okay.
if there is a re-emphasis of pronunciation, we'll learn as we go.
Well, Mr. Kanu,
He didn't get his name called out at Ohio State enough on TV that we should just automatically know it.
but very true and very fair. But now his name is big time here. Catch he takes a visit to Austin. It was a quick one that he had. I think he was supposed to take another visit. Was it A&M that he went to after the Austin visit? Or
Well, it looks like it would have went Florida, and then the last place he was going to go to was Georgia. And
Georgia? Okay.
As the visit to Georgia loomed, it started to feel like, okay, well, maybe Texas won't be the most motivated in this sweepstakes. I think it's really interesting, though, that this wasn't. We've seen Texas get into portal battles before, and the competition is UNLV or something like that, and just kind of think to yourself, well, that should be Texas if all things are equal. You started seeing, Florida, Georgia, A&M trying to get in. I know Michigan had apparently shown a little bit of interest, but I don't think he would have been able to make it into Michigan's midterm, which someone mentioned on Orangebloods that today's the last day to enroll. So
Wow.
They might still be able to squeeze him in the spring. It's one of the things that Hero is having to weigh, in addition to the NIL offers, every situation in terms of how soon they could get into the school, whether it would still have a day or two left to enroll this semester, or would they have to wait and show up in the summer. I think I don't know this for a fact, but if the deadline is today, my guess is they'll sneak Hero Kanu in and that he will be here in time for spring workouts, which is really big because it's funny. I saw a comment that you made based on talking to a source of yours.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a source of mine, and Texas stepped up to get this thing done. This was not an inexpensive proposition. One of the things that Texas is kind of like, and I'm going to write about this before the week is over. It might be a war room thing. Who knows? I might do it tonight. It just kind of depends on what my schedule looks like. And I got to vet this out a little bit more. But, one of the things that's starting to happen is that the old bagmen schools have kind of returned to the bagmen. So there's NIL, and then there's what amount of money in a briefcase can you slide under the table to the parents? And so, the NIL offers $1 million, but 400,000 unreported dollars goes to the parents, and it will just never stop. College football wants to be so pure.
Yes.
On one side.
Yes.
And on the other side, they're stealing out of the pockets, out of those who want to be virtuous. So it's just.
And by the way, can I tell you one thing I've heard? How some of that money gets delivered? Crypto.
Oh yeah.
just set up a crypto account, and clear. I haven't heard this from a UT perspective, so let's be clear. But I've heard it from other folks who have told me, "Hey, just set up a crypto account, and somehow you go open up this account, and you'll find this money mysteriously in there." And I guess this way. Look, I don't know anything about crypto, but other than I'm waiting for some things to maybe hit one day.
But the bottom line is,
to
not get too far off track, because I can see
my bad.
I can see us going down the tracks.
Okay.
They they paid up. I do not know what Hero Kanu's NIL numbers will look like. If I had to guess, somewhere between maybe 750 and $1 million. If I had to guess, maybe I'm wrong, but I was told that it did take a real outreach of NIL to get this thing done. Again, the competition where schools highly motivated to get so it speaks to whatever this guy hasn't yet done at Ohio State. Big time schools think he has big time upside. And I think I forget the exact wording that you had on Orangebloods about, like, the expectation will be this guy comes in to be kind of a regular contributor. But if he's only a regular contributor, that will be a disappointment. I think that is completely fair. I don't know. And I think if he's able to sneak into this spring and take a part of spring drills, I think he would be, of the 3 defensive tackles that they've taken, I think he would be the guy that they would say, we expect you to start. We expect you to be a major piece of the defense, and you better not just be Jermaine Lole. There needs to be a version of Vernon Broughton or Alfred Collins inside of you. And so those are the expectations. We're not talking about a guy that has made a big impact on the field, but he's a guy that Ohio State definitely wanted to keep around. If you talk to Ohio State people, they'll say he was either going to start next year or at least be maybe the first guy up as a non-starter in the rotation. So the expectation was that he was going to stay and become an important player for Ohio State. And if that's the case, they're letting you know that this is a guy that they think has NFL upside.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, people at Ohio State wouldn't describe him as a guy that they would just recruit over him. So the Longhorns are getting a guy that they think is eventually going to be an NFL player. I think they think he has the ability to be a high impact player, and they're going to, it sounds like from an NIL standpoint, his compensation will be significant. So this isn't a little deal. This is a guy, when you start thinking about what will the makeup of the 2025 defense look like, we'll be paying a lot of attention to this guy in the spring, assuming they sneak him in for enrollment this semester, which it does seem as possible. I'm still I need to check that out. I've been just juggling a million things, but I think they think this is a big pickup. So far on where there have been guys that they've been in it for, that I wonder if they've completely gone to the mattresses to make sure that they get the deal done. Mm-hmm. I think that happened here. Now, will it happen with like a Pat Coogan, the offensive lineman at Notre Dame? I don't know. These things are situational. Each one's a little bit different. But they were the first school that Kanu visited. And in the end, I think Texas probably extended itself in NIL more than anybody else did to get this done. What speaks more to someone's urgency or desire to have something than the amount of money they're willing to spend on it?
Well, I mean, Catch, when again, the thing that I keep referring to, I keep my handy dandy depth chart, right? From the SEC championship game, at this point, look, Alfred Collins is gone, right? I'm just going through the depth chart. Lole, gone. Vernon Broughton, gone. Savea, gone. You got Alex January, he's back. Bill Norton, gone. Aaron Bryant hit the transfer portal. Sadir Mitchell hit the transfer portal. From the defensive tackle positions and the nose tackle positions, that's one guy left, Catch, which was Alex January. So we're at that point, and I think I want to see. I asked Tyler to put in your scholarship board. I'm hoping what I'm about to put on the screen is accurate, but I asked him to put this in here. I believe this is accurate.
Yeah. That looks good.
Okay. So, Catch, I mean, they bring in Brevard, they bring in Travis Shaw, but this is a room that, as you can see and you can speak to, Catch, really, really needs not only some impact players, but needs some depth, because whatever you think Brevard or Shaw may be, Kanu needs to be there. Alex January is a mix. And then look, everybody else that they hit, especially like a Justice Terry, that's, now you found money. But from a depth perspective, Texas was really hurting in that room, Catch.
Yeah. And I think if you look at the group now, I think they got to feel pretty good about what they have. Now, you can't see the numbers real well because the board is so big that, but in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that total number says 82 right before the orange column. at the very bottom, the total number of scholarships now is up to 82. But they're going to have guys that depart and after the spring. And my guess is, in fact, we already know of a couple of names that I think we will eventually expect. But there's a big glut of offensive linemen that at some point have to make a decision on what they're going to do. I think that there are other positions where there's just a little bit of a log jam. There'll be some at wide receiver. It's guys start getting into year 2, year 3, and they're not anywhere near the too deep. Those are guys that are obvious candidates to enter the portal in this day and age. And so you almost don't have to talk about their names. You can just look at the scholarship board and go, okay, well, like Malik Agbo, like what is he? Is he 2 years ago, he was a blocking tight end. Last year, he couldn't get on the field as a backup offensive lineman with all of the adjustments that are taking place. Like, what is his role? I mean, he's probably a guy that you want to keep an eye on because either he creates a new role or that guy is going to decide, like, I want to go play football somewhere, and this isn't quite it. I think the defensive tackle position now has 3 guys, which isn't as many as they had last year in terms of 3 upperclassmen. I think one of the things to mention about Kanu as well is that he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So it's not a pure rental the way Travis Shaw or Cole Brevard are. Now, what I think is really interesting is that outside of Brevard, everybody else isn't really a nose tackle. That's not who Travis Shaw is. It's not what the newest addition is. Hero Kanu is he played 123 snaps last year for Ohio State, and they were virtually split between playing on the left side, outside defensive tackle, or the right side. So he can play on either side, but I think he played 1 snap at nose tackle next year. So you wouldn't think they're recruiting him for that. January, Justice Terry, all of these, they lack, I think, a Bill Norton defensive tackle. And so it wouldn't completely shock me if we see them go into the portal one more time before they arrive in the summer and try to find somebody that can compete with Brevard for tackle time. I think that those outside tackle spots, everything in the interior that isn't played by a nose tackle, that competition is really interesting. You have Shaw and Naku competing for who's ahead in the transfer battle of guys that came in. And look, Travis Shaw's played football. That's a 5-star talent coming out of high school. I think they feel like that's a guy that's got NFL upside. Then you think of January, and then you add in Justice Terry along with the other defensive tackles in this class. I think a year ago, the young defensive tackles really had a hard time getting on the field because of the transfers and because of the presence of Brock Collins. This year, I think in the spring, the Justice Terry, Myron Charles, I'll
put the names back up here. I got you.
Why am I? Oh, Josiah Sharma. I wanted to call him a mixture of Josiah and Sharma, and I just wanted to make a Jasharma or something. I was trying to do. But you'll have all 3 of those guys getting reps. So when they come out of the spring, they'll have been able to tinker with some of these young guys. They'll have 15 practices to kind of, is Melvin Hills involved in this at all? Or is he 8th? I think that these are questions that will be asked in the spring. But I think you'll have a group of 4 at defensive tackle and Brevard, Shaw, Kanu, and January, that those guys I think will compete for the starting spots. And really that's a big part of the 2 deep.
Yeah.
Which of those freshmen come in so hot and heavy that they're able to push their way into that conversation will determine, I think, just how desperate, Texas will have the ability, if it's not happening coming out of the spring and they're like, look, we need more, then I think they'll go get more. I think that they're in a position now, though, where they won't feel their light at all. This could be the group. Again, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they look for a nose tackle, a TBA, to be determined nose tackle in the spring, because most of those guys don't profile as a nose tackle, but they're getting closer. That is not a bad group. I think if you were to take that group and set it side by side with most of the teams in the SEC, Texas would fare pretty favorably. I think it's sometimes easy to forget that everybody either A, is replacing their guys as well, or B, maybe didn't have a whole bunch of good interior defensive tackles anyway. It is a position where good players are worth their weight in gold. And even mediocre players are worth seemingly close to their weight in gold, hence everything that we've seen in the portal. I don't know that there's a world out there where Hero Naku should be a million-ish type of player at this point, but it speaks to the value of good ones if you can find one that any interior defensive lineman with a pulse is going to have value. It does remind me of Dominic Williams last year, transferring out of TCU, looking at both Oklahoma and Texas. He wanted $1 million. He didn't get anything close to that, but I'm pretty sure he hit about 500,000. And then you look at the season that he had at Oklahoma, and I don't think he had a $500,000 season, but that's the money that you spend just to have a chance to have a guy who might be able to be a really good player. And it makes you wonder, like, whatever it is that they spent on this guy, what would a Vernon Broughton or an Alfred Collins be worth on an open market? Mm-hmm. And I shudder to think, because I don't think a year ago we would have thought very much. And I think after having watched them this season, Anwar, and now looking at the market for guys that aren't even as accomplished as Broughton and Collins, I don't know, man. Would those guys have been like $1.5 million players if they come back for another year, if they had that kind of an extra year of eligibility? Maybe that threshold isn't just for guys like Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons. I would imagine if you're a big boy and you're really good, like, what's Walter Nolan worth? Because I think he got about $1.5 million last year when he transferred from A&M to Ole Miss. That guy's going to be a first-round draft pick. What's he worth if he were transferring in this marketplace in 2025 when everybody's got money? Everybody does, and everybody's got to spend it.
Yes.
Is he worth $3 million?
Easily, right? I mean, like, what
1.5 last year.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I can see that, right? I mean, you are what, people are willing to spend on. And for the interior guys like that, I mean, if we're talking about Kanu making close to $1 million, then yes, she can make double that, right? We're talking about a guy who had like 14 tackles and a sack last season.
Dude, I'm just trying to put my finger on the pulse, and it won't stop moving. I can't completely find the pulse. And again, I don't exactly know what Naku is getting in the portal. I threw out a number, and I was told it wasn't quite that high. But I was also told that, like, Texas had to go the distance to get this thing done. There were no discounts. It required maybe an overreach just to get their guy. Mm. And like, I don't know what that is, but I kind of have an idea. Mm-hmm. So if it ain't $1 million, it can't be far away either. And that is, I think, the story in college football right now in 2025. Once we get closer to the season, I think it has to be the explosion of NIL dollars. That what's happened in this offseason has completely doubled and tripled the going rates for good players in the portal. And that is not the players' fault.
Yeah.
Players didn't do anything. The schools got more money. And, Anwar, if we gave either of your boys or my kids like $1 million and sent them to the mall, and we were like, hey, guys, $1 million doesn't go as far as you might think it does. Like, spend responsibly. They're coming back. All of it is spent. The whole mall's been purchased.
Dude, and you know how many Robux cards they're getting from GameStop at that point? It's an unconscionable amount of Robux that they're going to get at that point.
is just one of these things where they're trying to be responsible and they're trying to get good value. These are businessmen that are behind the scenes making business happen, but they also want to win. So it's a hell of a thing to, on one hand, say we're all in 2025, like Ohio State was all in 2024. So we are to hell with long term, to hell with the freshmen in 2028 and 22. All we care about is 2025.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say all you care about is 2025, and then a piece of the puzzle that might significantly help your cause crosses your eye line. Are you all in or are you not all in? And what does all in mean? Are you really all in if you won't stretch out a little bit further to get a deal like this thing done? That doesn't sound like all in to me. That sounds like kind of all in. And that is not who they're saying they want to be. So I think this, for me, when I saw it this morning, I was like, okay, by any means necessary. And Texas fans need to quit talking about NIL as if it's not being taken seriously, as if they're sitting around not being competitive. We know that they threw a bunch of money at Emmanuel Pregnon, the offensive lineman that went to Oregon. They offered more NIL money for him, had that confirmed by a source yesterday, that it might not have just been NIL money that was in play there, but from an NIL money standpoint, the Texas was as good as it got. And he decided not to go to Texas for reasons of his own, but they're not like pussyfooting around and trying to do this cheap. There really are by any means necessary. And to know that it's by any means necessary and it's still really hard, I think it should, like, people should know, like, man, it's hand-to-hand combat out there on those streets. It is, it's like watching the beginning of Gladiator. You don't know who's going to make it out of there alive. It's pretty brutal for everybody. And I think that's the NIL world right now. Georgia had an eye on this kid. Georgia's probably sitting around like dog cussing Texas. Texas will do anything. They'll spin willy-nilly. And it's like all these schools are doing their best. And when you lose a battle, it's a very thin margin. I think Pregnon at Oregon's probably a good example of that. And I bet when it was all said and done, this kid makes his decision to come to Texas. But I bet there was a close number two, and I bet the money was fairly close. And what ended up maybe being let me tell you this. It sounds like to me the NIL money decided this. I have not been told, well, the money was equal, but he really wanted to play for Sark. I was told had to pony up. That's what it took. So, just keep that in mind whenever you want to beat up Texas NIL for not having been overly aggressive thus far in the portal. I bet there's been more aggression than you think, and sometimes it takes a little bit of luck along with that aggression.
Hey, Catch, before you go and get out of here, Jason said something yesterday on topic, but just kind of talking about the depth in the room. He said it was interesting. He said people forget how good Alex January was in high school and how good those Duncanville teams were. But can you just remind folks who maybe, don't have boots on the ground like you do, and they're hearing Alex January for the first time right now this offseason? That guy was a pretty good force when we played with Colin Simmons, and they had those really good. Had those really good teams. That particular portion of good teams, Alex January was pretty much he was kind of a stud, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, his senior year at Duncanville, he won the District Defensive Player of the Year award over Colin Simmons. So he had a great senior season. He played a lot last year. He probably played about as much at Texas as Hero Kanu played at Ohio State. And I think more. I would need to go back and look at the snap count, but January was playing first half snaps against Ohio State. So, he was not getting pity snaps. Like, he's reached a point where they thought his presence on the field was as good or better than some of the guys that have departed. We count all the seniors that left by the end of the year. January was taking some snaps. the thing that you can't do, though, is put all your eggs in a guy that's unproven. So, like, there's tons of promise there. He might be the best guy they have on campus right now. He might actually emerge as a starter over Hero Kanu, but not enough experience yet to just say, I mean, it's kind of the same thing at wide receiver. Well, yeah, no, he played. He caught some passes. But Steve Sarkisian has shown no hunger or thirst to lean on a guy who's got 12 catches. Not if he can get a guy who had 50 catches last year at a high level at a big-time school and who projects as an NFL player. Like, he'll take that transfer and then he'll tell that young guy, hey, go be better than him. If you're better than him, I'll play you. But if you're not, I'm going to play Matthew Golden or I'm going to play Isaiah Bond. And, it speaks a lot, I think, to what Ryan Wingo did, that by the end of the year, he was he had 500 yards receiving on the season. That's really good. That's not the same thing as you caught 12 passes. But I think that January could and probably will have as big of an impact at defensive tackle than anybody that they've signed. Or that would be a disappointment because he'll be getting ready to go into year 2, and they'll expect him to start to scratch the surface of like what his prime as a player will look like. And it's, I think that guy projects as a future Sunday player.
All right, Catch. I know you said you had to get out of here, right? You got some things that you need to take care of. So thanks for joining. I'll continue on this show. And you'll be back noon today, House Divided?
I'll be back in 2.5 hours.
All right. Well, if you need some more Catch and you got a little bit of a taste, and I'm sure you'll have something else there as well. So Jeff Ketchum joins us there. And I think this whole thing, like as he was talking, one of the things, and I'll put you guys on the screen now, you guys can come on in. One of the things that, I thought about as it relates to Texas, and, I've talked to people behind the scenes, is that, once you get there and you have that taste of success, it's hard to go back, right? Like you ever had an opportunity to fly in first class, right? And I remember one time I went to Morocco, right? And I had the opportunity to upgrade my ticket. And so I flew in first class to Morocco, right? So first time I've ever been there, not first time I've ever been in first class, but we got the international flights, but you got the things that could go down. You could literally just take a nap. I had my iPad set up, like everything. Like it was fantastic. And I regret not paying for the upgrade on the way back. Because then when I had to fly back in my regular seat for 8 hours, I'm like, man, this is some BS, right? It would suck. But that's kind of where Texas is. Like once you go first class, which is getting to the semifinals, the last 2 years, going back and sitting back with coach, with everybody else, ain't what you want to do. That you don't want to take a step back. And so that's where it comes in. That's when you spend on the NIL and you're bringing in the 5 stars and the 4 stars and the guys who'll be in development, all these kind of things, right? Because you don't want to go back. Like Texas can't afford to take a step backwards. Like that's the main thing. It's maintaining the success, because once you get there, it's like it's harder to maintain it, right? It's like losing the weight. That's one thing. Keeping it off, that's something else. That's for all of us with our New Year's goals. And don't worry, Unc's got his New Year's goals too. This damn dad bod here. Whew, I got to do a little something with it. But that's the hard part, is like what is the maintaining. And so that's when you see, as a guy with Kanu coming in, it's interesting. I had some conversations as relates to the defensive tackle position. And there's a couple of positions that I was told, okay, we've got some guys, but we could definitely upgrade if there are some people that are out there. One of them was the wide receiver position, and the other one was the defensive tackle position. That's the reason why I asked Ketch to talk a little bit more about Alex January, because one of the things I was told this offseason is that one of the goals is going to make sure that Alex January is ready to hit the ground running. And not to say he wasn't, but for him to take that next step, right? The next step in his evolution. There's high hopes for him. as well as their high hopes for like Trevor Goosby on the offensive side, right? Because we've seen him in a couple of starts, and now there's an opportunity for him to do more, right? But Alex January, not to the Goosby degree, right? The Goosby degree is a little bit different, right? We're talking about the starting left tackle, but we're talking about a guy that they do want him to compete. The other one that they've put in, one person had told me that there's a lot of high hopes for is Justice Terry. And I was told that if Justice Terry hits, that this defensive tackle room could be just as good from a baseline, if not better, than they were this past season. And that's contingent on a little bit on Justice Terry and them having a belief in him and everything that. Now, Justice Terry, as you guys may or may not remember, because of where he was at from an enrollment standpoint, he was actually able to get some practices in during the postseason with the team. I think he did some Peach Bowl practices and then Cotton Bowl practices. So he was actually scout teamwork, right? So nothing crazy. Like him and Michael Terry, they were able to get in there and do some scout teamwork, but just to able to get some reps. So the defensive tackle position, though, becomes one where Kanu comes in, and he's a guy, again, when you start I'll put back the scholarship board for those of you guys who've come in late, but I also think it just helps to kind of look at the depth here that they're trying to build. And so again, you've got Brevard, you've got Travis Shaw. That had like a New York accent that came out of there, didn't it? You got Hero Kanu and Alex January. Like I think that's where you start from your base. That's clearly probably where your 2 deep begins. And again, that's a battle that these guys have to have. And again, the thing I'm being told behind the scenes so far this morning, when I've been able to make some calls before I was able to come on air today, is that no one's looking at Kanu as a backup depth piece. When I looked at his numbers, I said, well, maybe he's just, a depth guy. That's fine. Because you need depth, but as Ketch kind of said, he's not expected to be their Jermaine Lole. This is not Jermaine Lole 2.0. This is a person that's expected to come in here and really compete for a starting position. And they're paying him that way as well. So the expectations are that he's going to, he's going to come in, compete against Brevard, compete against Shaw. And again, being in that rotation. Now, look, still being in the 2 deep, as you guys know, and you guys watched games last year, Texas is good at putting a rotation out there. So, even being in the 2 deep says a lot. So, they definitely want to make sure that Kanu will be getting up to speed. January, of course, will be in that mix. And then it's really about finding someone else who's here, right? The Myron Charles of the world, the Josiah Sharma, Melvin Hills, but Justice Terry, again, he's the guy that they look at and say, that's that dude. He's that guy. He is him. Is that what y'all young folks say? Something like that. I'm gonna try not to, when older people start to talk about using young folks saying, we sound like narcs and stuff, right? So I gotta be careful. I stay in my own lane, but that becomes where they're at. And I do believe from a transfer portal perspective, I believe from the things that I just kind of hear that I wouldn't be surprised when we get past the spring if there's a receiver that's added to the mix. So there's a couple of different things I'm going to talk to you about, and I'm going to say this out loud. I'm going to talk about receivers and I'm going to talk about DBs for a second. So when it comes to the receiver mix, I'm going to have a heavier conversation about this tomorrow. I actually was going to have a Ryan Wingo show today, and that's actually where I was heading with the conversation. I'll have a little bit more from the Ryan Wingo / receiver conversation, some things that I got back, I think even in a Peach Bowl, some things that I've referenced. So, I've been storing up a bunch of little like a squirrel, a bunch of little nuts that I want to make sure we'll have throughout the winter. But I'm told that they like the receiver room. There's guys like Wingo that they're really high on. DeAndre Moore is going to be another person that they're really going to be high on, and they really feel like, hey, the hardest thing is going to do is replace Matthew Golden's production, because Isaiah Bond spent a lot of the last year being injured, and so he didn't have that impact that they would have hoped that he would have had. But then the DB room becomes another kind of a huge thing where they're looking for guys to, as it was expressed to me, they said, like, look, we moved Jahdae Barron to cornerback last season because there was just a lack of depth out of there. And we just didn't have the cornerbacks that we felt like could go. Now, Jahdae moves to cornerback and becomes all world, right? He just takes off and hits a new stratosphere to the point he becomes the best defensive back in the country, right? So that's next level, right? But going back to, once you get there, you want to get back. That's just the goal. Like, we know if Texas doesn't get back to the semifinals this upcoming season, we're going to view that as a disappointment, right? Because you've already got that. And so it's about maintaining it. So now it's about finding DBs throughout this offseason who will have the opportunity to compete. And so one of the things that I was told is that they want to see a high level of competition in that DB room, particularly from the safeties, particularly from the safety position. Now, obviously, you got Michael Taft coming back, but you're missing out on a Makuba. But they want the cornerbacks to be competitive throughout this offseason. And don't forget, winter conditioning just began on Monday. Just a lot of lifting and running at this point, not a whole lot of field work and anything to that effect. But those are kind of those positions that they're looking at. And again, the defensive tackle position, again, this is where Kanu comes in. They feel really good about that. He becomes now a key addition to them. And look, I'll have some things in the war room that I'm kind of working on. But I do have some things in the war room that I'm working on and what's the war room? The war room is the things on Orangebloods that you may not be privy to. Like, and again, I'm just going to show y'all something just because you may not be on OB. And so let me get you just kind of a behind the scenes look. Because when I say, like, well, Orangebloods, you're like, what the hell? Like, all these message boards. Let me just show y'all just real quick. And this is all relevant. Don't worry about it. This is not a sales pitch. It's more of an informational thing. So here on our board, I had a nugget from last night that it was kind of practice related, right? And then, as Ketch is talking, he has his analysis of Kanu, but then he gives you kind of the breakdown, by the way, Mercury exterior, so, but he gives you the full breakdown of, Kanu. He gives you his evaluation, why it matters, the expectations. And again, I'll read this portion of it. Understand this: Kanu isn't arriving cheaply. The Longhorns weren't battling a number of highly motivated SEC powers to pull Kanu into the fold. And if I had to guess, he'll earn close to 7 figures in NIL money as he arrives at Texas, which by itself indicates that the Longhorns expect him to emerge as a possible game 1 starter for the Longhorns in 2025. At the very least, we're talking about a player with 2 years of eligibility remaining that will play between 250 to 300 snaps for the Longhorns this season. And at a minimum, if all goes well with his adjustment period with the Longhorns. And if it gets got a bunch of other things and a bunch of other comments that go along with it. And then, again, when I just speak to that, we got recruiting threads and, just a bunch of different things that, some Schlossnagle stuff, and then a bunch of other things that are in here. I saw something else that was interesting. Did you guys see that, just real quick, the Jalen Milroe Senior Bowl stuff? I look, I'm not going to say I told y'all so. Not going to say I told y'all so, but have you seen? I'm going to show y'all this real quick. It is because I am going to say, I was the person as the Quinn guy. I was like, and when Ketch and I would battle back and forth, I would say, I don't think Jalen is a better passer or a better quarterback than Quinn is. And he's like, no, he's not. And then we had this battle back and forth. Let me just show y'all real quick what happened at the Senior Bowl. Let's show you guys this tweet here. So, and let me make sure I get this enlarged here. Jalen Milroe was reportedly having extremely difficult time at the Senior Bowl practice today. Struggled much of practice, throwing interceptions, skipping balls, having issues with accuracy all day long. At one point, Milroe reportedly missed 8 throws in a row during one-on-one drills. Mills' performance was reportedly subpar of that of Jackson Dart and Riley Leonard, who he competed with today. I mean, well, let's just see what the whole thing looks like. Let me just take myself out of it, and let's just see what NFL Rookie Watch shows here. Interception there. Oh my. Ugh. Well, not a good start for him. Quinn is not, obviously, he's not participating in the Senior Bowl at all. So, but yeah, that's just something that we're, keep an eye on. Again, this is where I kind of went into the whole thing with Quinn. When I started talking about, draft positions and all these kind of things, I'm like, draft class, it's not that strong. It's not that strong. And look, Quinn's going to get to the combine. He's going to make those throws. Quinn will get to the pro day. His pro days. He'll make those throws. He'll do private workouts. He'll make those throws as well. But anyway, just keeping an eye on those things. I know Cody and Alex are out there at the Senior Bowl, so they'll have some things for you about them as well. Not looking good, but we'll keep an eye on that. Look, coming back at noon, Catch, he'll have his show. He'll be there today, him and Chad, and then he'll have more not only on Kanu, but we'll also have some stuff that's NIL. And yes, I forget, it was Mark Anthony, my favorite Latin singer, who said something about joining OB. Yes, you need to get a part of it and become a part of this. It's not just it's a good community, just a good community of people that you get a chance to talk to and interact with. So you won't necessarily just be limited to, our shows here, but you have this thing all around there. By the way, good Valentine's Day gift. Good Valentine's Day gift for the Longhorn fan in your life. You got, and fellas, you looking for a Valentine's Day gift for your lady and she's a Longhorn fan, give that to her. Ladies, same thing. Valentine's Day is around the corner. Better start planning now. Just saying. All right, though. Speaking of love, I appreciate every single one of y'all. I'll be back tomorrow. I will talk Ryan Wingo, of course. I'll make sure I get that topic in. But we'll also have some other good things that are out there as well. Y'all take care of yourself. Remember, I always say, live each day like it's your last. One day it will be. So go out, do something special for yourself. Even if it's going to Jersey Mike's and ordering a nice sub. Do something special for yourself because you absolutely deserve it.